Our guest for today has a history in bands, but choose to come out as a singer-songwriter now, working from the heart, singing about connection with others and the world around us. And yeah, you took that quite literally with a video clip for a recent release called Ook een beetje, but more about that later.
Yeah.
You got a fresh release that just came out, Samen Jong,
Hell yeah.
Tweeling. So good to have you. It's nice to have you on the show.
Yeah, so good to be here. Thank you for having me. This is
Nice.
yeah, I really love your platform and what you're building.
Thanks. Means a lot, and it's really great, as said, to have you here now as well. I was wondering, it's a question that I normally ask as a first one always. How would you describe what you do creatively yourself?
So yeah, I'm a musician, of course. Very multifaceted, I would say, because like I started as a drummer and was in a band for a really long time, but then began my own thing. And yeah, it's funny. I think ultimately the value of that sort of musical thing is mostly to connect with people, you know. And I see this when I'm at my show. I try to have like interaction and like mostly the things that warm my heart are when people reach out to me and say, hey, this meant something to me, you know. And by the way, I take connection as a very broad thing, you know. You can connect to the people around you, to nature, but you can also connect to your feelings, and like all of these things are important, and I think music can help for all of them.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you mentioned already, like, you played in bands before and now kind of switched to like doing things more independently. How did you come up with, like, because you said you started as a drummer basically, so how do you come up with, like, because you play the guitar now, but you make your own beats, you sing with it, how do you come up with that, and how did you decide to make that switch basically, or was it not a decision?
Yeah, well, it's funny, when I was in the band, I would often be the person who was writing most of the lyrics in a way, like not necessarily the vocal lines, but I would be the person giving a lot of meaning to the lyrics often, because I was the best at English, frankly. But it just kind of worked out that way, and I really enjoyed that. And so when the band kind of fell away, I also picked up some guitar on the way, just by jamming to the music that was already playing in the house always. And yeah, when that kind of fell away, I really wanted to still... I mean, you can never take music out of me, I think. Like, it will be a part of my life forever. So in whatever way I can, I will give outing to that. And yeah, I just really... It's funny because at first I was writing songs in English. I was like trying to just... Yeah, mostly for my own emotional processing as well, just putting it out there and just letting my emotions ride, you know. But at some point I came across someone who was entertaining like a group of people. I knew him, and he was entertaining a group of people with some like really funny Dutch songs. And I was like, but they were like really simple and really straight to the point. And I was like, that is really cool. And I think that might suit me as well. And so I tried writing a few Dutch songs, and it, I don't know, it felt really fitting, and it worked really well, I think so. And that's what I made something out of, and my passion into for now. Yeah,
cool. So you, like, all the songwriting you did before was like English, as you said, because your English was better, but then you also quite consciously made the choice to go and sing in Dutch, indeed.
So yeah, it's interesting because, like, obviously the reach of the music will be the ceiling will be lower, but I think something about writing in your mother tongue is very nice. It's just very homey or something, or like very comfortable, and you can be a lot more conscious with the words that you're choosing. And although I would say my English lyrics were a lot more poetic, and my Dutch lyrics are a lot more simple, ironically. But maybe that's also that's also fitting in a way. Just like simple and straight to the point, and easy to connect to. You know.
Is it like a bit more like straight from the heart, a bit more direct, that it like is less like for the poetic part? Are you more like consciously trying to be poetic, or did that came out naturally as well?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's partly sometimes I just like to be that way, but I also think it's a bit um, like also because of because if you're writing in English, my main uh, goal with that also it used to be, oh, then I can reach more people or something, like a sort of a maximizing or optimizing thing. And I think the same was true for the poetic language, where you want to sort of make it as cool or as interesting as possible or something. Um, but I think there's also a giant power in just having it be simple and straight to the point, and that's what I connected a lot to when I started writing in Dutch, I think. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I want to hear like a lot more about how that came about and like what you're doing now later. But I'm also curious like about the little Tweeling. Like, do you have an idea of what your earliest creative memory is?
My earliest creative memory.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, the first time I remember really sort of my creative world opening up a little bit, we always had a piano in the house, and I was a big like I would drum already. I was already drumming, but I would just play along to tracks that I've heard and stuff, and mostly just getting exercises from my drum teacher, not really being involved with it myself necessarily. But I remember I was a big fan of Linkin Park back in the day, and there's a track that everyone knows, like, In the End. And we had a piano in the house, and at some point I was like, I think I could play this, you know? Like, it's not
quite
that
an
crazy.
iconic and not extremely complex.
And then I just looked it up online, like how to play it, and I could just play it on the piano, and that was such a world opening up to me of like, you know, whatever I hear being played. In theory, I could play it. I might have to practice for a while, but in theory, I could figure it out.
Yeah,
And
that's cool.
that's very empowering, I think.
Yeah, because it was then way more than just a rhythm thing that you could do as well. Like, I can imagine that it opened up like, oh wait, there's more to music than a rhythm or something.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, for sure.
For you to do as well. Like,
yeah. I mean,
that's cool.
I would say it didn't happen at that moment necessarily, but over time, gradually, because I also learned, I realized that, like, even if I'm not a pianist necessarily, I can just learn something on it, you know? I don't have to be taught in it or have lessons in it or something.
Yeah.
But
that's really cool.
And because of that, eventually I started to see myself more as a musician than as a drummer necessarily. Just like back in the day, it was a musician who primarily played drums. I'll have to say that. But I like the freedom of that, you know. Because music,
cool.
there's no right or wrong in music. It's just, yeah. I mean, of course, you're gonna be more fluent in expressing yourself if you've practiced more. But everyone can express themselves musically. You don't need practice for that necessarily.
And like you mentioned that you already were having drum lessons at that moment, right?
Yeah.
So what age were you then? Like when you had lessons?
Drum lessons, I started at like 7 or something, but I think the piano thing happened a few years later, like when I was 10 or something, 9 or 10.
Cool. So like you started then like actually playing instruments yourself when you were around 7, or did you play anything before that as an instrument, or were you already active with making some music-wise things?
Well, I mean, when I was like a really young kid, my mom was a singer, mostly for hobby, but still, she would always practice singing to. She sang bossa nova a lot, which is like a Brazilian form of jazz. And it is like this really soothing. People often call it elevator music, which is funny. It does kind of sound that way, but that's because it's really soothing and relaxing.
It's chill.
And I would often get that when I was in the crib. You know, I would hear that. So it's soothing for me if I listen to it now.
Cool.
I guess that is like the earliest form of musical development I had.
Like really, you were surrounded by it like on an early age, and then
Yeah,
do you remember like what happened that you turned from listening or enjoying music to creating yourself? Do you know what happened there?
really creating myself was when I think I met my first band members. But that is a while later. But it also happened through drumming. Like we were in a music school, and they had this band project, and then we would come together. And at first, it was just rehearsing songs for like that already existed for the band project. But then we were like, hey, we could actually start this for real, and just try to write some songs and stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Which was.
And did you just start drumming, or like what sparked the interest in like going on drum lessons and stuff like that?
Well, that's a good question, actually. I'm not. It's not that conscious for me, but I can remember I was always a pretty active kid, like very like running around everywhere, and like and at some point I think I went to see some music with my mom somewhere, and there was a drummer there, and then I was like, Mom, maybe I would like to try drumming, And she was like, that is a great idea.
Yeah, just to get an outlet.
Exactly what you need to get your energy out,
That will make my kids sleep again at night.
Yeah. So, that was, and it stuck. It stuck around. Yeah.
Really cool. Yeah. So I can imagine then that there's like a lot of things happening between you starting your drum lessons and like where you are now in your evolvement of like doing everything on your own, but also playing multiple instruments.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we recorded like a live performance for you as well, which we will share like a week or so after this is live. And there I saw like you play around with like a looping station that you got right new now, and
yes,
like
that's a very recent addition. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I'm just wondering, like, there are probably some very interesting things that happened along the way to that. And I'm just wondering if you could name, like, 2 or 3 moments in your creative journey that you would say, like, this made, like, a giant step in my creative and artistic self-development, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I think the first one that comes to mind is my band falling apart, because I was always in that context of I'm the drummer, in that band. I was the drummer, and I was technically happy with that for the most part. But after that fell away, I really got into a period of, I still want to express myself musically, but how am I going to do that? Right now I don't have a band, so what am I going to do? And then at that point I started just learning a bunch of different things. At first I really got into like learning how synthesizers work, with like, I don't know if you know VCV Rec.
Doesn't ring a bell now, but yeah, it's
basically this digital environment that mimics modular synthesizers. So you can have like simulated boxes that you can connect with wires and stuff, which really it's like super complex and complicated when you first start out. But as you learn it really opens your mind to how sound works in a way, because you get at the very core, you understand how synthesizers produce sound and stuff. So that was really cool. And then also guitar, of course. I also was like picking up the guitar in that time, and just I think that although something fell away that was really dear to me, it opened up a lot of space for me to explore, and to rediscover myself. So yeah, sometimes things can be a blessing in disguise,
Yeah, be a bit hard at the beginning, but then
exactly
turn out to be valuable. Yeah.
And then the second moment, I would say, I already kind of mentioned it, of like the realization, like, hey, I can write songs in Dutch, because I think that a lot of me bringing my music to the world is also me having to let go of perfectionism, of wanting to do something as good as possible or something. Because there's no right or wrong in music, and just the idea of embracing simplicity, of just embracing like this doesn't have to be the best thing ever, or it can just be simple and a simple translation of what I'm feeling, and I think that's super valuable, because just the notion of things don't have to be perfect, and you can just show it to the world, and that is okay.
Yeah.
So important to me.
Is that like a challenge then? Like, or was that, or is that still a challenge then, that you mentioned it as a specific thing that you see as valuable, like in the process?
Yeah, I think it's always a challenge. Just now, especially, I was bullied quite a bit. In that, it's sort of your little mind makes up this of like, oh, I cannot too much because they will be mean to me or something. They will strike me down or they won't appreciate that. And so making music, and realizing that it can be simple and not perfect, and just showing it and just not being afraid, that's really hard, but it is super important for me, at least, to do, because it feels so empowering to just go, hey, this is it, it's not perfect, it's not, but this is what I feel, this is what I've made, this is it, and enjoy it.
Do you have any things that you feel like that helped you to make perfectionism, or like doing it perfect or not, like how do you say it, like that helped to make that less important and make it more like about sharing what you feel? Or do you have any things that helped you in that?
Well, one thing, so when I was playing around with the synthesizers, in that period, I started to, I followed this course that was about making video game music, because I thought that was really cool and I wanted to try that. And I didn't expect this, but one of the most valuable lessons that was in this course was to learn to finish things. Because you can start so many things and you can have so many ideas, but finishing things is a skill in itself, and you have to practice it. You have to practice that moment of, I think this is as good as it's gonna be for now, and I can let it go, So I did that a lot. I just made a lot of things that they are probably never going to see the light of day, but I was like, I've made this, I've translated this idea, and now it is done, and I can put it aside. And I think that is a very, very valuable thing to practice, to just be able to say, I am happy with this now, and I can move on. Because I think ultimately the important thing is to keep moving, You just want to, because people who are really perfectionistic, and I used to be that way in the past as well, can just get so bogged down and so stuck in a project, and it can take forever, But you're ultimately the big moments of growth are when you release something and then look back on it later and learn from it, But you have to keep moving for that.
Yeah. And how do you decide for yourself, like, because I like what you say, that you can finish something and not release it, that's perfectly fine, but that you still mentally close off a certain thing. But how do you for yourself, like, decide, like, okay, I'm not gonna release it maybe, but now I'm stopping working on this is finished now? How do you determine that for yourself?
Yeah, it's hard to describe. I think it's more of just a feeling, when a very good thing to do, I think, is when you've recorded something, or when you've made something and you record it, and then you turn around and you listen to it with your eyes closed, just trying to listen to it as much as trying to hear it for the first time, And if nothing springs out at you, like, I want to change this, or I need to change this, or I feel like this can be a little bit different, if nothing jumps out at you, then then it's kind of done, Because for me, creativity has to be a feeling, and it has to come from inside. And so when nothing jumps out at me and nothing takes my attention, then, and that is separate from the question of, do I think this is good enough to release, or to to show to the world. That's a different question altogether, I would say.
Yeah, I find that super valuable. I think that's really also, how do you say it, like, valuing your inner process by saying, okay, this is done now, and I can close this off, like even behind music, so to say, like practicing that skill with your music can be super valuable in life in general. I can imagine that you just learn to say like, okay, I would maybe want this to be different or whatever, but this is as good as I can do it now, and I accept that this is it now, and moving on.
Yeah, and cool. Also, I think also sometimes you might have made something which to you still feels, oh, it's not good enough or it's not perfect, but showing that to the world as well is such a powerful thing, I think, because just I mean the idea that you have to be perfect to show yourself to the world is so limiting, you know. There's so much value and so much beauty in flaws and in limitations, and people know that and people see that.
Do you then feel like, because of the sharing and because people then still appreciate it, that makes you feel like growing in that, or is it that what others find of it is not that important anymore, or is it a combination of both? Maybe.
I mean, I wish I could say that it wasn't important. But it's hard to completely remove that from your system. You know, you want people to like the things you've made, and I think that's very natural.
I was just asking this for a friend as well.
But I think no matter what people will say, it's way better still to release it than to keep it in. At least for me, because if I wouldn't release it, then my own voice in my head would be the worst critic, you know? Because the reason I'm not releasing it is because my inner voice is saying like, this is terrible, no one's gonna like this, and you know. So in a way you can only go up by releasing it. You can, for me at least, I can only it could only be better. So it's a win-win in a way.
Cool. That's very valuable stuff, I think. Yeah, and very valuable insights for you, as you mentioned. I can imagine. Yeah. I get why you're saying that. That's valuable steps in the process. So
for sure. What a journey, and I love it.
What a journey. Yeah, and it's quite a step that you're starting, like, actually pretty recently, right? If you look on the whole scale of Tweeling, because you just released your third song now then. On the Tweeling. So where does the name Tweeling comes from, actually?
Yeah, that's a good question. I get asked it a lot. I have two separate answers to it.
It's a Tweeling.
And that is, what answer I give depends on how much spiritual mumbo jumbo I think the person across from the table can handle.
That's interesting.
So let's start with answer number one, which is the simple answer, and that is that my actual name is Thomas. And in ancient Aramaic, where the name originates linguistically, that means twin or alike-looking man, but it's twin. And I thought it was kind of cool. So,
interesting that you know the story behind your name, that you searched that up. So that's cool.
And well, it was also a miracle to me, because I was like, Tweeling, you know, twin. That sounds kind of cool. I kind of like that. And then I was looking up whether any artist is called that whatsoever, and there wasn't one. And I was like, I was like blown away. Like, that is such a name that somebody would have. I totally expected it to be taken, but it wasn't. Yeah. And so I was like, that's kind of cool. Great. Now I also want to briefly give the spiritual mumbo jumbo reason. Because in my worldview, I think of I used to be quite an airy person, you know, still in a way, but I was listening to a lot of like Buddhist teachings and like Eastern philosophy stuff, and in those philosophy traditions, oneness is a very important concept. You know, that we might be living in this world right now, and we might experience everything as separate right now, but in a way everything ultimately is one and is all connected, and I think that's beautiful, and to some degree I do experience the world that way. But on the other hand, we are also, I'm also Thomas, you know, I'm also this flesh and blood and this, in a way, concept that I've made of myself. Like I am Thomas, the idea Thomas. And just experiencing those two things at the same time, the oneness and also the separateness, feels to me almost kind of like a brotherly bond. And so that is the twin within me, in a way.
That's really
and within everyone and everything, I think.
Yeah, that's really cool. Is that something you also experience, for example, when you're performing?
Well, if I manage not to be too nervous when I'm performing, then yes. If I get into the flow a bit, then especially I have some moments sometimes where people really sing together, and also when they start to warm up and sing with me a bit, then that really relaxes my guard, and just hearing people sing together is, that really reminds me of that oneness, you know, that and also what my previous song was about, ook een beetje, just that we're all not that different, we're all connected, and especially hearing people sing together is such a way to remind myself of that.
That's very cool. Yeah. I'm very happy that you also shared the other reason with us, because I think that's really cool. It's like an art form on itself to think about it that way, and it adds for me, if you have like told about your name, you know, like there's a lot of like not to judge, but there's a lot of people that just pick a name for some reason, and I find it beautiful and adding to the art that you think about it and have a meaning. And I can imagine it's also empowering for yourself to work with your name in that way.
It's a good reminder of what I want my music to stand for, you know, for connection.
Beautiful. Because I hear you say like connection is like a theme that you try to incorporate in all your music. Is that like something you do consciously, or is it just like a message that you feel like you want to work on a longer term, or is that a message that you want to work on now that you feel like comes up? Or?
Well, in a way, for me, I think it's unavoidable for it to be about connection, because I often write my songs for my own emotional processing, you know? So they are a way for me to connect to my emotions. And that's why I kind of hope and think that they will be that for other people as well. Because they're not superficial for me, so they probably won't be for other people either, I hope.
Is it that you approach your music with like something happened in life and now I want to write about that, or is it, I'm just curious, like if there's, or is it just a very organic process that you're just go and jam? How is that songwriting process going for you?
It is crazy. I cannot describe it. Because I might be doing the most random thing, you know, just either doing the dishes or like often it will be at really inconvenient moments as well, like when I'm getting ready to go to school or something, and like I'm almost kind of in a hurry, and then an idea will pop into my head, and I'm like, wow, and then it just completely takes over my mind. I'm like jamming to it, and then I can't focus on anything else anymore. And when I give into that, often lyrics will sort of naturally follow, and they will just kind of come out of me, and then when I take a step back and I realize what I've written or what I've made, then I realize, hey, this is really fitting to me in this moment. And then that is often a very emotional realization of like, oh, that is the way I feel about this, you know? Like almost as if it sort of comes out of my subconscious to show me, hey, this is how you're feeling. Are you aware? And that's why I say it helps me with emotional processing, because writing music almost always makes me realize how I feel about something. And
it
so
comes
it's not
in the
the other way
moment.
around, where I decide that where I'm feeling something and then decide to write a song about it. It's just kind of.
And if I get you right, like it kind of shows in the moment that you're either in a rush or feeling something, so it naturally comes up in the moments that it needs to come up, basically.
Yeah, yeah. It's I struggle to understand it truly. Like it can be at the
So you
most
accept
random
it.
moments. And I'm like often when I feel it coming up, I'm like, no, now come on, I need to go. But it's also wonderful. I really like it that way.
Cool. So now that we're talking a bit about like how music comes up and stuff, your like recent release, like Samen Jong, your new song actually released last week. I was curious, can you tell us a bit like how that story came together, like how that song came to be? Do you remember the moment that you were in a hurry or doing the dishes and it came up, or what's the story behind it?
So Samen Jong is actually a great example of this, a truly amazing example, because it's very much about the love between two people, and for me it's very much about the love I feel towards my current girlfriend. And I wrote this song at the start of the year, probably in about February or something. And I mean, it's a bit of a complicated story, but in a way we only started dating in January, like all the way at the beginning of the year. And if you listen to the song, it's quite intense, you know? The feelings are really deep and really, like, there's a really intense love there. And so it caught me off guard completely when I wrote it. I was like almost kind of scared of it, of like, oh God, am I really feeling this? This is really intense, and I'd better buckle up, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it is beautiful. Like, hey, this again, the song is like, this is what you're feeling. You'd better accept it, because this is what it is, you know.
Yeah.
And I think as far as where I was in my day, I'm pretty sure I was getting ready for school at that moment, ready to go to uni to do some classes or something, and then I was fiddling around on the guitar a little bit in the morning while I actually should be making breakfast or something. And
always something more fun to do than
and
eat.
then it just kind of happens. Yeah, and I probably arrived a bit late for class that day. I'm pretty sure.
Cool.
But with something tremendously valuable gained. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's worth it, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And it was also not too much later I played it for my girlfriend. It was such a nervous moment because, it's such an intense emotion, you know, and we were both, kind of taken aback by. And for her, it was very recognizable, you know. She also felt that way. It's just, it's scary how intense a feeling can be all of a sudden, especially love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then playing the song out, which is probably nerve-wracking, but then because you take that big step of, you know, out of the comfort, you get the confirmation back actually that you're not the only one feeling that way, which is also beautiful then.
And that's what leads to connection, you know? Saying...
Being vulnerable.
I mean, I'm gonna let go of what you might think of it for now. Because in a way I was, of course, scared that she would maybe be like, oh, this is too intense of a feeling, I'm gonna go away now.
Yeah.
But putting that fear aside and just expressing it, this is what I feel and this is what it is, that leads to connection.
Yeah.
Because then it's true, then it's honest.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's cool that you say, like, it's also about accepting that feeling is there. Because I think it was your premiere, like your debut track, basically, Alles Wat Je Voelt, is also, like, very much about that topic of, like, there can be this whole load of emotions, but whatever you feel, it's, like, okay and accepting.
Yeah, well, I think that's why Alles Wat Je Voelt was my perfect first track, because it's the first thing I ever put into the world for this project, you know? But it's so much about, like, whatever you're feeling, it's okay, you know? And whatever it is, just accept it and don't be afraid to show it. And because that is what is true, and you can resist it, but that will only lead to bad things.
Yeah. And I get what you say. I can imagine what you say. Like, it's almost the perfect track to start it with, because I think for me it could feel almost like a permission to write about everything that I feel after for the project as well. That it's like allowing the project to be like about everything I feel or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
and it's funny because in the video for Alles Wat Je Voelt, there's also some pieces where I'm sort of singing to myself, you know? There's like a version of me in the corner that is crying, and I'm singing to that version. And I knew that I wanted to make it that way, but only when I saw it later on the screen, I was like, damn, that is so fitting. And it teared me up even a little bit. I was like, yeah, because that is what that first track was like. Yeah, just, it's okay. Whatever you're feeling, it's okay, but just show yourself. And here we are.
Yeah.
More than half a year later, three tracks released. So we're going strong, and I love it.
Yeah.
I'm proud of myself for it, for sure.
I think you can be, but it's beautiful to hear that you feel it towards yourself. I think that's very beautiful, and I think a lot of people might not have that enough, like, for the things they do and bring out. Yeah. So just to jump back to Samen Jong real quick, I would love to give it a spin in a minute and
cool.
Listen to it together and share it with the viewers as well.
For sure.
But before we dive into that, I'm just curious, is there a certain bit in the track that you felt like was a challenge, or that you felt like you had to get through, or maybe it's as simple as a certain element that you technically found difficult as well, but is there a challenging part in the song that took you to get over a bump, so to say?
Well, I think the favorite part of my song is at some point I use my vocals quite dynamically. I go because the point I want to make there is, whether we're on the highest mountains or we're in the lowest lows, we will get through the fire together. It's in the second verse.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of hard for me to get that right. To really get it right, like big and small, because I wanted to feel intimate, the whole track is really, I wanted to have this vibe of you're just floating through space together, and you're very, but it's like very intimate, like my voice is the thing that is there for you, but there's a lot of emptiness and a lot of, space.
Yeah. Cool.
But then, it was really hard to get that right, of that moment of big and then intimate again. But I think it worked out pretty well.
Cool. I would say I'm just gonna give it a spin now. Then we can listen to it together, and the people viewing or listening can listen along. And maybe it's nice if you can afterwards give a short explanation in English, like a short summary of what the song is about for people that aren't Dutch.
For sure.
Understanding.
Of course.
Cool. Let's give Samen Jong by Tweeling a spin. Here we go.
Jij bent alles. Dat ik voor me zag. En de wereld voelt wat minder zwaar. Laat me schrikken. Knijp me als ik slaap. Ik kan niet dromen dat ik zoete dromen mag. Hoor bij mij en ik hoor bij jou. Samen jong, ook al zijn we oud. Hoor bij mij, door licht of grauw. Ik ben zo dankbaar dat ik van je hou. schaduw. Tot de zon die lacht. Van de bergen tot het stille dal. Met jouw liefde, met jouw kracht. Er is geen vuur wat ik niet trotseren zou. Hoor bij mij en ik hoor bij jou. Samen jong, ook al zijn we oud. Hoor bij mij, door licht of grauw. Ik ben zo dankbaar dat ik van je hou.
Wow. It's so nice to see you like feel it when we play it. Like I see you like glowing when you hear it back.
yeah. I mean, I keep loving it.
Yeah.
Also
really
something
great.
I realized when I was listening to it. Maybe that's also a cool little challenge that was to it, because I talked about my roots as a drummer, you know, like, and usually everything is very rhythmically aligned with in what I do, but this track, it doesn't have that, you know. It's very much, the timing is all based on feeling pretty much, and there's very little rhythmic backbone. So that is also. Yeah, it's a departure of where I came from in a way, but for this track I found it so fitting, because you want to create this big feeling of space, of like you're floating, you know. So,
yeah, it's very much just I don't know. I want to describe it like things that come up are just like it's a super sweet song and you feel like that in it, but you also feel the power in it with like what you say. I think in the end you nailed it with like the dynamics. I love that you that you showed it as well, that we all understand what part it was about. But I think you really feel that, like the power in it then as well. And what I really love is like the super subtle like guitar, but sometimes it's so small that it's only like in the background that you hear it like very tiny, and it
this
shows
is definitely
for me
a headphones song.
Yeah, but it's so beautiful because for me it's, you hear the power in the song, but you also hear the vulnerability and I think vulnerability is the right word that comes with love, right? That it feels so fragile, I think. Yeah. But at the same time so powerful, and
that's
I think
beautiful. I think you described that beautifully.
Yeah.
Like love is, it can be so, it's kind of hard to say in English, but like dispowering or something, like you really, it melts away your defenses, and then at the same time it can be so empowering, you know. So I think it's really cool that you say that.
I think it's really cool that you could like how do you say it, like express it in this song.
Cool, thank you so
very
much.
cool. And I also want to say that you said that you feel like it's less poetic in Dutch, but I gotta say that I definitely feel the poism in there and the poetry in there, and like the I think is it abstract? Like there is some abstractivity to it.
I guess I use a lot of. Do I use metaphors? Yeah, kind of.
About the cold and the light and the dark and
true. Yeah.
Very pretty. Yeah. So would you like be able to give like a short English summary of what the song is about, like for people that don't understand the Dutch?
I think the song really represents the powerful emotion of love that happens when you've really decided to commit to someone, you know. Like it there's this sort of fragility in it of like, this is quite scary because might actually be committing to this person, but also it feels like I'm in a way being completed, you know, being. Well, I don't think that's necessarily the best way to say it, but a void that was in my life has truly been filled because I found someone who I can really, really connect with. And so the lyrics are a lot about like whatever will happen in life, we will be there together, and we will be young together, even though we might be old.
Yeah. I wanted to ask that, by the way. Like, is that something? Is it more metaphoric because you're committing to someone that even if you're later at some point you might be old, that you're still gonna fix it together, or is it that you feel older now that you decided that you're now gonna commit to someone? Because old, like, age is a very relative number, of course. But
true. No,
I wouldn't say you're
really
old.
Picturing a sort of elderly couple sitting there, but still being like goofy and youthful, you know, just because you bring so much color to each other's lives. Yeah,
it's beautiful. Yeah,
yeah. That is really, and you know, I am beyond humbled and grateful that I get to experience that feeling for someone right now. And I hope everyone does. But love is just such a beautiful thing, truly.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, yeah, can do nothing more than bring a smile up on the face, like literally, like, it's beautiful to hear. Yeah. I was wondering, like, we touched on it a few times. Like, connection is like a big thing in your project, in general, in your songs. And I was wondering, like, there's also the connection with the world around us, and Aliens of Earth obviously is like a platform which also has like nature and earth and stuff like in the spotlight. And I was wondering, have you ever incorporated nature in some way in your music or felt inspired by it? In any way?
I mean, if we talk about things that help me process emotionally, then nature cannot be excluded from that list, because the number one thing I do to help me get through a tough day, or when everything just feels like way too much, is to just go on a walk and be around some trees and be around some. There's just a certain peace to it, you know, and it's a healing thing, and it happens purely automatically. And I think nature is so important. As far as whether I've incorporated it into my music, I mean, there's a bit of appreciation for the sun, I would say, and the earth that we stand on. But I think there is a song brewing. I've written parts of it, and it definitely might. It would really be about how fragile the planet is and how lucky we are to have her. So
that's
I
coming,
hope, It will be a while, but but I really hope to finish that one at some point as well.
Cool.
Because I think it's such an important message, you know, that you guys are spreading, and that a lot of wonderful people all around the world are spreading. Like, the earth, it needs us to be protective of it, you know. Because like it's not too easy right now, in a lot of ways. Like, in a lot of ways in the world, there are a lot of challenges. But we cannot forget the value of where we came from, or what our roots are, and our roots are in nature. And we need her. We need her, and she needs us.
Sounds like Earth is important to you. If you say it like that. Are there certain things you're like doing if you say like we need to be careful of her and protect her and things like that? Are there certain things you are consciously doing to contribute to that, or like certain choices you made, like insights you gained over the time maybe? And
well, one really important insight I would like to share in when it comes to this is, because this was a big thing for me. I used to be a more so black and white person, like I would either have to do something 100% or I would do it 0%, you know. But I think especially when it comes to taking care of the earth, every little bit you can do helps, you know. It's not that if you decide to help the earth, and then you have to spend 100% of your effort to do everything you can to. No, every little thing helps, and I think that's so much more manageable than some of the messaging that is out there of, because it can really scare you away, you know, when you think like, oh, whatever little thing I do, it won't matter or it will be too small. But if you think that way, you're gonna get nothing done. Nothing is going to happen. So whatever feels manageable to you, even if it's just the tiniest little thing, if you just pick up one piece of garbage when you're walking around, just do that, because every little thing counts.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully said, and it's also like really my view on it is like we don't need like a few handfuls of people like that do everything perfectly. Beautiful circle to like your project as well by not doing things perfectly, but exactly. and then not doing anything because you're afraid of it not being enough. Like I think we need everybody to like at least try to be conscious about it and indeed do like a little thing if you can, and there is no such thing as like a perfect person or like doing it perfectly. I think if everybody does a little bit, like we need everybody like aboard on it.
I mean, nobody will be perfect. Perfection does not exist.
No.
And just let go of it and try to do whatever little thing you can. You know, I think that is the most important thing.
Yeah, that's really how I feel about it as well. Yeah. I'm just curious, like if you would have to name like one thing that you feel is very easy for everyone to adopt in a way to like at least not harm the planet further, some like an easy tip that like everyone could do to contribute without too much effort, so to say.
Yeah, I mean, one simple thing that I often do, and we've actually recently gone on a little trash pickup walk, is to I mean, you're out and about in the world all the time, and it's so easy to see something on the street and say, oh, somebody else left that there, so it is not my responsibility to pick it up. But if you decide not to pick it up, it's also your responsibility that it is still there. And that might be difficult to accept, but it is true. And so that is like a really simple thing. The only thing you have to do is that you have hands, probably you're not using them in that moment. Just pick it up. What the hell? It doesn't matter. So that's one thing. Cool. Yeah. Personally, I also like to try and really cutting back on how much meat I eat. I think, and maybe that's not necessarily an environmental thing, but just I think the way animals are being treated by that industry is not great. It's far from great. And and also there it was really, for me, I had to come to terms with not being 100 or 0. Like I tried to be 100% vegan for a while, but I just couldn't really handle it. And also it's not the best for everyone's body necessarily, not the best for everyone's health necessarily. But also there I had to come to the realization that I just think that industry is kind of messed up, the way they're treating animals, and it's best if we give them less money. So whatever you can do to give them a little bit less money is better. It doesn't have to be 100 or 0 here as well.
Yeah. No, it's a beautiful circle again to your music. Like, you don't have to be perfect, but to express yourself and do your part. And I think that's
and just keep moving with it.
Yeah. And by releasing some pressure of yourself, you will probably also be able to do your little part better. Exactly. And it's better for your mental health as well.
Yeah,
like also very important.
I mean, most people don't function very well under pressure, you know, and we have enough of it. Like there's so much pressure that we are under in our lives from just having to do everything that a normal human has to do. So cut yourself some slack. Don't expect that you will be perfect, and just do little things. And it's all good.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, and I want to thank you in general, like for the whole talk and sharing your music with us, sharing your thoughts and a bit of your process behind it with us. I'm very excited also for the performance that's gonna go live in a week from now. It was very fun. We recorded it live at the community gathering, so it's like kind of a special live performance that we're gonna have.
Like nice out in nature, just what the community stands for. So that's great. Exactly.
Yeah, and also I found it really cool that you brought your like looping thing.
I mean that's a perfect example as well of like. Yeah. By no means was my interaction with that pedal perfect, and I had bought it very recently, but I just want to play. You know, music is also about playing and just having fun, and and so it won't be perfect, but I think that's fine. It's all good.
But that's why I pointed out, because I love that you know it's gonna be recorded, but you show like this is my process. I'm going for it, and you take it, and it's. I love that it's such a good tool to create a moment how it's gonna come out. Like you can't control every aspect of it, and you can do it perfectly. So very excited for that. I just want to close up with after saying thank you to you, that if you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to it on Spotify or wherever you're seeing this, give us a follow on that channel, because we restore 1 square meter of landscape somewhere in the world where it's needed the most for every new follow. And it works on all platforms, so if you follow us on 5, we will restore 5 square meters. And then you'll probably get a notification when the live performance from Tweeling is live in a week or so. So make sure to do that. Tweeling, thanks again so much for
Thank you so much for having me. I'm truly grateful to be able to come here and talk to you. I think we've had a wonderful conversation, and what you're doing with this platform is amazing. So keep doing what you're doing, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I'm taking valuable personal lessons from this talk as well. So thanks for sharing your mind and heart with us. Yeah, thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you so much. See you soon.
All right. See you soon. Bye bye.